Hello everyone. You caught me drinking water yet again. So this is public finance class. My name is Dr. G, Dr. Gevrek, and we are today talking about consumer surplus, producer surplus, economic efficiency, and first fundamental welfare theorem, all in the context of public finance. So I want to go back to last class. We talked about equilibrium. Equilibrium is where supply and demand curves intersect, right? This was supply curve for movies, demand curve for movies, where they intersect. And this is the equilibrium point. At equilibrium point, there's no excess supply or excess demand. Market clears. And how does it work? So equilibrium price is right here. You go start from the equilibrium point, go hit the vertical line, vertical axis, right? That's the price. So this is the equilibrium price, market clearing price. At this price level, quantity demanded is exactly equal to quantity supplied. Quantity supplied is exactly equal to quantity demand. Quantity supplied is exactly equal to quantity demand, and market will clear, okay? So economic surplus here is maximized. This is going to be consumer surplus, producer surplus. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go to the proper slides. Okay. Social efficiency. Measuring social efficiency is basically we are computing the size of the economic pie. So when I showed you this is the size of the economic pie. These two triangles, producer surplus, consumer surplus, these are maximized when we are at the equilibrium condition. Okay, so the net gain from trade to consumers and producers, they are maximized at this point. Okay, consumer surplus is defined as the benefit to consumers they derive from a good beyond what they paid for. This definition doesn't mean much to me. I need an example. For instance, you enter a department store, let's say Macy's. Okay, you enter a department store or any store, you're shopping, you found the most amazing jacket at Macy's and you're shopping, right? And you found this jacket, you love it, it's exactly your style. It is my style. It's very pretty. I use this to ride motorcycle. It's good protection. Okay, so let's say you found it at the Macy's and you were like, oh my gosh, I'm willing to pay $300 for this jacket. You check the price tag, it is only $100. So $300, the maximum you're willing to pay, smells good, minus what you actually paid, the value beyond and above what you paid in terms of price is your consumer surplus. So $300 what I valued this jacket, and I only paid $100, $200 will be the consumer surplus. Okay, I'm gonna toss it. All right. So this is going to be the points on your demand curve shows you the willingness to pay. So that $300, my valuation, is one of the points on the demand curve. So that's the willingness to pay for that quantity. So let's talk about the supply curve for movies, demand curve for movies, quantity of movies is here, price of movies is here. So let's derive consumer surplus. All right, so for instance, willingness to pay for the first unit of movies is really high. Somebody is willing to pay, let's say, I'm just making this up, $50 for the first movie, right? But let's say this is a very rich person, okay? For instance, I don't know, pick a rich, the CEO of Amazon, right? He's willing to pay $50 is nothing to him. $50 to watch a movie at the movies. But if he only pays $10, so this $40 difference will be his consumer surplus. Yet the actual price paid is much lower. Boom. Consumer surplus. It's not really, this $50, but it's going to be this area because it's this one is maybe like 1 million. Just keep that in mind, okay? So one unit, this 1 unit of movies, right? 1 million people. So when you add their demands, willingness to pay, you're going to get a smooth line. So the consumer surplus will be this trapezoid, okay? So willingness to pay for a second unit is a bit lower. So you can either do the same person watching a second movie or somebody else, right? I am a big movie buff. I'm willing to pay for a movie for $20 maximum though. I will not go above that. 20 minus 10. So that's the willingness to pay for a second movie. There's still surplus because the price is still lower. I'm willing to pay 20 bucks. I paid 10 only. Okay. So this is the consumer surplus, so on and so forth. The consumer surplus for the last unit, third unit or 3 millionth unit, right? It's 0 right here because this person was willing to pay exactly. How did we find? Start from this quantity, go hit the demand curve, boom, here. Willing to pay $10, exactly pay $10, 0 consumer surplus. So this is going to save you. In many courses, consumer surplus is always defined like this. Area below demand curve. I'm just shading the entire below demand curve, above the market price, whatever that is, and quantity exchange right here. Okay, so this area, again, area below demand curve, above market price, limited by quantity. This is going to be consumer surplus. Okay? So total consumer surplus is this triangle. So consumer surplus is determined by the market price, equilibrium price, and the elasticity of demand. Elasticity of demand, remember, it determines the shape of your demand curve. Okay? With inelastic demand, demand curve is more vertical, right? Inelastic, close to vertical. So surplus is going to be higher. I'm going to show this to you. With elastic demand, surplus will be lower. Okay, so example, consumer surplus, this is the general case, right? Just general case, area below, repeat after me, area below demand curve, above market price. I don't say equilibrium because sometimes market price will be different, limited by the quantity exchange, boom, this blue area. Okay, so with inelastic demand curve, demand is steep demand curve. Right, with a steeper demand curve, look at the consumer surplus. It looks larger for sure. With more elastic, right? Elastic means flatter demand curve. Your consumer surplus gets smaller. Keep that in mind. All right, so again, this is an example. Consumer surplus is larger when demand curve is inelastic, steeper. All right. And consumer surplus is obviously, look. And consumer surplus is smaller when it's more elastic, flatter. Okay. Okay, producer surplus. Producer surplus is the benefit derived by the producers from the sale of the unit above and beyond their cost of producing it. I have a name for it. This is profits. Producer surplus is usually very easy to understand for students because it's basically how much does it cost you. For instance, let's say this water bottle, okay? Let's say I'm the producer of this water bottle. So let's say the cost of producing it is 50 cents. Very cheap. Okay, they usually are. It's a dollar sign. Okay, so this again, Freddy Krueger. If you've been watching my videos, you know what it means. We got attacked by Freddy Krueger again. So I call it Freddy Krueger when I try to like draw like a straight line. Sometimes it glitches. Let me see. It's not happening. Let's see if it's happened. It glitches. So I'm trying to, if I draw things slowly, it just glitches like this. It's like somebody anyways, going back. So it looks like 150. So I'm going to correct that. Everybody's like, Dr. G, please just do it. I know, I'm trying to do it. Okay, cost is 50 cents. It happened again. Just, we have to do it. All right, 50 cents. This is 50 cents. All right. Let's say market price for this is $14. So I can sell this for $14. I couldn't even write. All right, everybody's like, Dr. G, please let this madness end. It's a 14. I'm going to be able to do it. 1, 2, 3. Okay. If it's $14, if you can sell it for $14 minus the cost, $13.50 will be your producer surplus. Producer surplus is easier to figure out because it's sale price minus the cost. Okay, each point on the supply curve will show you the marginal cost of producing that last unit. Okay, so marginal cost of producing what first unit is low, right? Here, this is the marginal cost. So it's costing me, let's say this is burgers. I'm selling it for $10. Let's say cost of making the first burger is $2, okay? So marginal cost is $2, 10 minus 2, $8 is going to be my profit. So the actual price received is $10. Obviously, the producer surplus for the first unit will be that trapezoid. So it's like first unit is literally this line, $8, but I want you to treat this first unit like first 1 million unit. Why? Because we don't sell on the one burgers. Okay, you got it. All right, so it becomes a trapezoid because it becomes continuous. Many people here, many companies. All right. Second, there is still producer surplus for the second million burgers because the cost of producing that is, let's say, $5. 10 minus 5, you still see $5 producer surplus here. And if you add all of those 1 million units, that's going to be the area of this trapezoid. And finally, producer surplus is Q star is the area between, this is wrong, between the supply curve. I don't know why this is here. Supply curve. How do we find the producer surplus given any example? Very simple, okay? Producer surplus, area above the supply curve, grab the supply curve, stop. Below the market price, limited by the quantity exchange here. So this whole area will be your producer surplus. Okay, so this whole, total producer surplus is this triangle. Similar to consumer surplus, producer surplus is determined by the price and the elasticity of supply. With inelastic supply curve, inelastic means more vertical curves, producer surplus is higher. With elastic supply, which is flatter supply curve, producer surplus is lower. So this is the initial example we talked about, right? More inelastic, steeper supply curve, you have a larger producer surplus. More elastic, flatter, you have smaller producer surplus. Okay, let's talk about total social surplus, aka social efficiency or economic efficiency. These are all synonyms. Okay, social efficiency or economic efficiency or social surplus or total social surplus is consumer surplus plus producer surplus. So providing the first unit of a good gives a great deal of surplus to society. You have the consumer surplus on top and the producer surplus at the bottom. The surplus from the next unit is the difference between the demand and supply curves. So it's this weird trapezoid. Social efficiency, this is very important. Social efficiency is maximized at Q, at equilibrium quantity, at equilibrium point where the supply and demand curves intersect. So social efficiency is maximized at Q star and is the sum of consumer and producer surplus. The area between the supply and demand curves from the 0 to Q star market clearing quantity represents the surplus. So this is social efficiency or economic surplus or total social surplus, all synonyms. Okay, let's talk about competitive equilibrium. We talked about this already, but competitive equilibrium maximizes social efficiency, and this is the first fundamental theorem of welfare economics. In competitive equilibrium, where supply and demand curves, demand curve, let's not forget the quantity, price of a good, demand curve and supply curves intersect, this equilibrium point will maximize. If the economy is here, your social efficiency is maximized. This is consumer surplus, producer surplus. Continue with this, boom. Extend supply and demand curves, okay? So the competitive equilibrium where supply curve intersects demand curve maximizes social efficiency. Any quantity other than Q star, optimal level of, this is the equilibrium quantity, reduces social efficiency or the size of the economic pie. So consider restricting the price of a good to P prime, which is like you're saying this is the maximum price you can charge. So let's talk about deadweight loss from a price ceiling. Price ceiling is just like the room ceiling, right? Room ceiling, you can't go above room ceiling. Ceiling is naturally up there, right? You have to put the ceiling below this equilibrium price right here, okay? So with such price restriction, which is a price ceiling, the quantity falls to Q star. Let's say, they put a price ceiling, right? P prime. That means you can't go above this price. Start from the ceiling, go hit the first curve that comes your way, supply curve. So quantity of movies supplied is here. At this low price, start from this price level, go hit the demand curve. This is quantity of movies demanded. Now, quantity demanded is not equal to quantity supplied. So there's what we call excess demand here. But these many movies are available to be shown. However, I have so many more people wanting to see movies. Doesn't matter, only these many seats are available. So that's going to be the quantity consumed. Okay, so the smaller quantity determines. So there's excess demand as measured here, quant demand minus quantity supply. Okay, so what happens is that because this is the quantity consumed, and this is really important. This is my price level, right? So how do I find the consumer surplus, producer surplus? Let me show you, very easy. Consumer surplus, area below demand curve, above market price. Now my market price is this, limited by quantity exchange. The smaller of quantity demanded or quantity supplied will determine the amount of quantity exchange. So this weird looking trapezoid, this area will be consumer surplus. Let's find the producer surplus. Producer surplus will be, again, look, area above supply curve, okay, below the price level, limited by the quantity exchange. So my producer surplus will shrink. So now I have this area created, a new area has been created. This is what we call loss to the society. Okay, so this triangle represents loss in economic surplus, social efficiency. What we call this deadweight loss, Anything that starts with DW is bad news. So this is deadweight loss. Why is this happening? Because these many movies are never being consumed, watched. Okay? Let's talk about the role of equity. So we talked about efficiency, right? We want everything to be efficient, but if the whole economic pie goes to one consumer only, then there's no fairness, so to speak. So we care both about the social efficiency, size of the economic pie, and how it is distributed among the population. Social welfare is determined by both criteria. Okay, never forget this. Second fundamental theorem of welfare economics says that society can attain any efficient outcome by suitable redistribution of resources and free trade. So please know this. Society can attain any efficient outcome by a suitable distribution of resources and free trade. In reality, society, however, more often faces equity versus efficiency trade-off. Okay? So in the last part, we are going to talk about social welfare functions. We are going to focus on utilitarian and Rawlsian social welfare functions. So what is our objective, right? Do I want to, for instance, provide completely free education at the college level? Or do I want to cancel all college? We talked about this. Like in the US, 2/3 of the college education, this is public education, college education is paid by taxpayers. So do we want to completely cancel that? And what this is going to do is it's going to increase the cost of the college education, and many of you won't be able to afford it. What's our objective? What are we trying to do? We are going to talk about different social welfare functions by government to guide their policy actions. And I'll see you there. Bye, guys.